A group of climate change organizations have filed criminal complaints against President Cyril Ramaphosa and his ministers for what they say is unlawful negligence by failing to take practical action to address the climate crisis. A recent report by the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has warned of catastrophic effects should greenhouse gas emissions not be cut drastically by the year 2025. Let's discuss with climate activist Vishwa Satgar from the Climate Justice Charter Movement. Thank you very much for your time this evening, Mr. Satgar. So you're saying that the current situation in KZN, where almost 400 people have lost their lives, is a direct result of climate change. But in terms of the charges you've laid, can that causal link be proved?
Well, let me just first extend heartfelt condolences to all those who have lost loved ones in the midst of this flood and all those in a desperate situation. We stand with you. If you look at what's happening in KZN, it is not exceptional. Most of your viewers don't appreciate that in 2015, we actually started living on a new planet. That's when we overshot a 1 degree Celsius increase in planetary temperature since the Industrial Revolution. Now, what has happened since then is various climate extremes, like what people have been living through in KZN. I'll give you some examples. Madagascar has had 3 cyclonic storms over the past years on the back of a massive drought last year, which put 1 million people in food stress. You had Mozambique hit very hard by cyclones Idai and Kenneth and so on. You've also had in Europe massive flooding. In the United States, last year alone, you had 20 major climate shocks with the price tag of over $100 billion. Now, the climate science is very, very clear about this. Attribution studies that have been done, the report that was released last year, basically confirmed that we are living in this world of climate extremes. And we are going to have more floods, we're going to have more droughts, we're going to have more cyclones, we're going to have more wildfires, etc. That means our societies have to be ready. Now, the South African government has been a signatory to the Paris Climate Agreement. It's been involved in the climate negotiations for almost 3 decades. And we are one of 10 hotspots in the world, and it has really come short. Our argument around negligence, our argument about unlawful conduct by the state. We didn't have to have this kind of loss if our state was serious about the climate crisis.
Is there judicial precedent for these kind of charges?
So we deliberated long and hard with lawyers on this. The one example that we were looking to was Life Esidimeni, where 144 people were placed in harm's way, again by derelict conduct and negligent conduct by our government in Gauteng. In that case, it was a civil claim, and that required a lot of resources and a lot of money. Right now, we don't want to be spending money on the legal battle. That money needs to go to the ground. But what we have decided to do is test our criminal laws as the backbone of the rule of law in this country, as part of our constitutional order to affirm climate justice. So we are breaking new ground here, and this is going to be the first time that we are trying to do this in South Africa. We've been to 2 police stations. One charge sheet has been filled out in Mayville. Of course, the police didn't fully comprehend and understand what we were trying to do, but in the end, one of the station commanders got it. We also had support in Johannesburg Central to meet with the National Police Commissioner, which we're planning to do, and eventually with Shamila Batoy. We are busy soliciting affidavits from those that have been impacted by this flood. I mean, we are hearing testimony right now from people who were basically on floodplains and have been trying to get local government to shift them and move them to safety. We're getting testimony from communities where infrastructure has been failing left, right, and center. I mean, whether it's gutters, manholes, sluice gates, you name it, they have not been maintained by the local government and the local state. So we're getting all of this testimony, and we are going to be, if you like, pressing this forward.
So you're saying the lack of practical action on the part of government amounts to unlawful negligence. And it's a serious indictment, especially in light of the $8.5 billion in climate change funding pledged by world powers at COP26 for our government to get its act together. So what should they be doing with speed and urgency?
So immediately, South Africa should declare it is phasing out fossil fuels. And I must say, I was quite surprised that you had me on this program, because we have been fighting very hard against even offshore exploration, and the owners of ENCA, Hoskin Consolidated Investments, has interest in that. And I'm glad there's no blacklist. So I think it's very, very important that we phase out fossil fuels very, very fast. Every gram, every ton, every megaton of carbon and greenhouse gases is going to make a difference between us surviving or us being extinct as a species. That's the first thing. I think the second thing is that we have to have a serious just transition plan in this country. And the science is there. We have 3 of the most important documents of humanity that have come out of the UN over the past year and a half. We don't need the Climate Commission to be wasting time and taxpayers' money. Actually, that money should be given to the victims of this flood. We have the science. We have a conception of policy for adaptation, for decarbonization. We also have a climate justice charter, which gives us a vision developed by our citizens for where we need to be going. I think the third very, very important thing that we have to do is we need to have a climate justice deal for South Africa. South Africa is broken in so many ways. And if we tackle the climate crisis smartly, we can address the unemployment crisis through climate jobs. We can address issues around the lack of transport to clean energy public transport. We can tackle the issue of housing. There's a dire need of housing in parts of our country through eco-housing programs. We can do a whole set of issues around community and socially owned renewable energy. We think we can create, if you like, almost 3 million climate jobs. We need a new macroeconomic framework and economics of the climate emergency. And lastly, we need government at all levels, local government, provincial level, national level, to mainstream this. This is the imperative of our time.
While visiting affected families in the flood-stricken region on Wednesday, President Cyril Ramaphosa said we can no longer postpone what we need to do and the measures we need to take in order to deal with climate change, unquote. We also know that we have a Minerals and Energy Minister very publicly committed to fossil fuels. That's probably one of the reasons. But why else do you think government has been postponing active measures on climate change for this long?
So we have a carbon lock-in, and I've said this previously, and we've been saying this as a movement. We are a highly coal-dependent economy. We basically have massive coal reserves, and it runs into $1 trillion of value, if you like. And it's how our energy system has been built up around this minerals energy complex. So that is a crucial challenge, if you like. At the same time, the government is also playing, if you like, the game of complex hydrocarbons. So they are seeking offshore oil and gas. They're busy talking about building gas as the bridging technology. Now, that's also going to be a disastrous lock-in, a waste of resources, etc., for our society while we are running out of time, and it releases methane. So government has had, if you like, an incorrect perspective on this problem. And it really needs to break with those carbon interests. That doesn't mean a disorderly process. It does mean a rapid and a thoughtful just transition process that brings on board society at various levels, whether it is mine workers, whether it is communities, whether it is social movements, etc. This is the kind of governance that we need that has to come to the fore now. If President Ramaphosa repeats this story in the next 2 to 3 years, basically, I think he's going to have to be held further accountable. He said the same thing in 2019. He's saying it again. We need to go beyond rhetoric. We need action now.